here today with Kenny. Ken, how you doing?
I'm fine.
You are what I'd consider one of the sort of original soldiers in the scene.
Yeah.
How did you get into it?
From the beginning I used to rave like everybody else, and I used to work on London Transport, and I used to have to go to work straight after raving, and the two never mixed, you know what I mean? I decided to start DJing basically, but I never had no money to buy decks or nothing, but a girlfriend of mine, she helped me buy the decks, and I just started to practice back in 88, and by 89 I was getting regular work, because the scene wasn't really big then, so I knew all the right people, and when they heard that I was DJing, everyone just wanted to give me work. Back then people like me, Groove, Fabio, Carl Cox, we was all playing like garage house, acid house, anything went back then though, you know what I mean, anything went. Because I remember I even had a record by Queen in my box, called Another One Bites the Dust.
And then, you know, you obviously grew up with the scene then.
Well, for me, the scene started in 88, because that's when all me and my people started to go raving and started to get involved with the music and started to go black market records. When everyone, like the main public, started to know, it was 1988.
You're known as a jungle DJ, a drum and bass DJ.
Yeah.
When did it start getting into kind of one style?
I was resident for the Crazy Club at Astoria and Busby's and Crazy Larry's in Chelsea, and people, I think Mickey Finn, Rebel MC, started to bring the breakbeat into the fall to the floor, you know what I mean? Then you had people like Joey Beltram bringing in the breakbeat as well. So that's where the breakbeat thing came from for me. And then people started to make the music a bit faster, and then there wasn't no more fall to the floor. It was all breakbeat, and then people started using different breaks, hip hop breaks, ragga samples, hip hop samples, you know what I mean? And then about 90, 92, 93, it basically started to turn, and people started to use the term jungle, techno. But to be honest with you, I wasn't really into the breakbeat thing at first. I was more housey, garagey. I remember a conversation I had with Groove Rider one day, and I said, Groove, I can't really get into this thing, what you're playing, you know what I mean? But then the more I heard, the more I liked it, and then Rose put me as one of their residents, so I was getting it from left, right and centre, you know what I mean? And I just started to play it, but I started to pick out what I liked, and I liked mainly the reggae influence of it, you know what I mean? And that's how I started to play jungle.
When did someone start calling you a jungle DJ?
About the same time, yeah, 93, because the next year I won the Sound Clash. They had the Jungle Sound Clash competition, and me and a few other DJs entered this thing. It was like a knockout thing. I won it, and they used to call me the Jungle Sound Clash champion. For me, I was known as a jungle DJ from when it started, basically. The music we used to play back then, you know, was the most popular music in London at the time. A lot of people who used to make the music back then got big record deals and that, you know what I mean? Because of the vocal element, we drew a big crowd all the time, you know what I mean? It didn't matter who was playing, as long as it was jungle, they would go. Paradise Club, that's what made it for me. That started in 93 and finished in 95, I think, or 96. That's what really got my name on the map. Up till now, you will never, ever, ever get a club that was as good as that. You should have been there for the vibe. You should have been there for the music. It's the only club that I know that used to be open from 9 o'clock in the evening till 10 o'clock in the morning and be packed all the way through. You used to come out at 10 o'clock and everyone would be, you see all the people going shopping to the market across the road and everything, you know what I mean? So, you know, Paradise Club was so far, for me, the best thing that's happened to the scene.
Then the scene went into a phase where everything got really separated.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happened?
Too much politics. Some people tried to take control of the scene and said, right, you're not playing this is what we want to play. You know what I mean? We don't like the ragga. This is what we want to play. Like back in the day, if I went to Metalheads and played a set of Metalheads and played a ragga set, you know, people would have most probably looked at me funny. Or Goldie would have got the ump. You know what I mean? Because that's not what they wanted. They just tried to control everything. But it didn't work. Because if you've been in the scene as long as I have, you know that what goes around comes around. And now the vocals were all coming back in there. People like Shy FX and, you know, Potential Bad Boy, who was big back then, are coming in now with the same stuff, what they was playing back then, but just on a different format now, because everyone knows more what they're doing in the studio now. So the music sounds better now. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I got a bit confused with the scene back then, because when Paradise Club finished, I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in. A lot of people left jungle when Paradise Club finished. A lot of people, and then the garage started to come in, and a lot of the people who liked the jungle went on to the garage, because garage, as far as I was concerned then, was jungle. You know what I mean? Just slowed down a little bit, you know what I mean? But it was the same thing. And so we lost a lot of our crowd to the garage, and a lot of the producers went to the garage, and a lot of the promoters went to the garage. But people like myself and a few other DJs, we just stuck to our guns, you know, and it's paid off, because like we're still here now, you know what I mean? So It's just too much politics out there, you know what I mean? The only way it affected me is that I lost my direction a little bit for at least a couple of years. I just kept on going. You know, I knew that people wanted to hear me for me, not because I was playing the same thing as everyone else, you know what I mean? I was still having little ragga influence in my set and everything, you know what I mean? And I started to get a lot of work abroad. I was the first DJ to go to Canada and play. I was the first DJ, along with Groove and SS, within a couple of months of each other, to go to Australia.
Were you surprised at how the music was received, you know, so far away from where it started, really?
I wasn't surprised that they was into it, but I was surprised when I got there about how much people was into it. You know, I mean, you could go to Canada, for instance, and some of the parties were bigger than what's over here.
Do you still cut dubs?
Yeah. I mean, I play CDs as well, and some DJs have a go at me for doing it because they say that I'm putting vinyl out of whatever, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, somewhere along the line, it's going to go that way. Right? Whether it's next year or in 10 years' time, it's going to go that way, and it will be very hard for you to get vinyl cut. There might be only one or two places that are cut. It's just like the cutting machines. Now it's hard to find a cutting machine for sale, and that's how it's going to be the same for vinyl. But I don't think it will disappear. It won't disappear because as long as I can play vinyl, I will always play vinyl. I mean, for me, there's nothing better than taking a vinyl out your box or a dub plate and putting it on the deck and playing it. That's the way I learn, and that's the way I love to play music. It's just all about the way you mix down your music. That's what makes it sound shit or good. I don't go on the forums at all because they're full of shit. I'll tell you that straight, they're full of shit. I can take criticism, you know what I mean? But some of the shit you see on these websites, I'm not in it.
It's actually hurting the scene.
It does affect the scene because it affects the way people think. You know, I mean, if you've been on a forum all night and they've been slagging off a certain DJ, then as far as I'm concerned, the next day you're going to be slagging him off as well. You might not have even heard him before. I don't agree with it at all.
And what do you think of this whole BPM issue that everyone's talking about in drum and bass? Because there's been talk that drum and bass is too fast.
If you want to make it at 160 BPM, you make it at 160 BPM. If you want to make it at 175, you make it I'll make all my shit at 175. Back in the day, the music was a bit slower. You know what I mean? But it wasn't that much slower because it was made at 165 BPM, 170, you know what I mean? And now it's only gone up to 175. You know what I mean? So in a 10-year period, it's not a big difference. You know what I mean? You don't even notice that on the decks because when you're playing, you're speeding up the tune anyway. And people are playing their music at 175, 180 BPM now anyway. You know what I mean? So these people who are saying they want to slow it down, they can slow it down, but it's still going to get played fast, you know what I mean? There's no rules. You make drum and bass how you want it, as long as it's in that drum and bass format.
And what do you think of MCs?
Haha. MCs, I like MCs. The only time I don't like MCs, and I've said this time and time again, is when the MC is coming out of my monitor. When the MC is coming out of my monitor, I hate it. Professionally, he should have his own monitors, and I should have mine.
So that's a promoter's problem.
Yeah, it's a promoter's problem, and some people try to skimp and scrape, you know what I mean? So, the MC thing, I mean, I love the MCs because they do a good job, you know what I mean? And the kids love them as well. Personally, I think the scene's very healthy, you know what I mean, music-wise. You know, and a lot of people are doing more, instead of following the trend, they're doing what they really want to do. It is getting better. Because now you turn on your TV now, all playing drum and bass for adverts and everything, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's very healthy, I think.